Welcome to another exciting episode of the Drive Network. I'm your host, Big Bucks. I'm not alone. I'm with the chief economist himself, the award-winning economist. And yes, sir, yes, ma'am, you're right. This is where you want to be. My brother, how you doing?
I'm well. Thanks, Bucks. How you doing?
Long time no speak. And we've been saying we're going to do this.
Yes, we've been. It's been over a year. I'm glad that we finally got the opportunity to do it.
Absolutely. That's what you get when you're dealing with busy people, right?
Not at all.
I'm like, hey, Ndumiso, Chief, can we do it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm Feto, man. I can open up on my 2 months later.
No,
I'm like,
no. There's no such.
I switch on my TV. He's on some news. I'm like, no, he's busy.
You can confirm.
I can confirm. He's busy. No, thank you so much. I am actually thinking, Jorge, just before we get into the meat of the discussion, right?
Yeah.
I just want you to tell me, Jorge, what is so unique and what makes Ndumiso unique? And who's Ndumiso?
Sure. Ndumiso, sure. I think, so I practice as an economist similar to you, trained in economics. I'm the middle child of 3 boys at home. And what can I say? I'm fascinated by economic development, all things markets, business, commercial enterprise. And I also have a very social upliftment spirit.
Absolutely, I can guarantee that.
So everything must connect to how it sort of develops people, community, and so forth. And I think that those are some of the things that have shaped how I think, how I view things, how I apply myself in the world of work and in other areas as well. So I think maybe that might be what makes me unique.
No, that's incredible. We've definitely seen you unique. This guy is busy. We've seen he's unique. But I think also what I normally do in this show, right? Because I'm a guy that just likes cars.
Yes.
I like cars. It's a tool of inspiration as well. And growing up, I used to see like guys driving nice cars, and I'm like, hey, Grootman, what do you do?
Sure.
But mostly they're like, Askawaram fan.
Sure.
But there's probably a young man or looking at you, and he sees you driving past with your BMW, and he's like, man, And for me, I just like to know, is there a story behind the car?
Yeah.
Why the brand? And
Yeah.
I think I'd like to take advantage of the fact that we're talking to an economist,
Yeah.
just to understand what was the process of purchasing this car. Like, what did you do? What did you research? From an economic point of view.
Sure. Yes. No, I think what I love about the brand BMW, it was probably the first brand I bought when I bought my first car. It was the 1 Series then. And it had a good balance. It has the right kind of power and comfort.
Yes.
And it also looks good.
Absolutely.
So those were the considerations. I then also looked at what maintenance looked like then when I had the 1 Series then, and now having moved to an X4, looking at whether or not I'd be able to afford the service plans, and even after a service plan, if I want to keep it longer, is it a car that I can be able to maintain? And when I looked at some of those things, and for key things, key items, key engine parts. So one of the things I think in looking for cars, you first ask, what are the most problematic features with this car?
Absolutely.
After a certain time, then mechanics will tell you, no, that car, when you reach this mileage, you must look out for this. That car, when you reach this mileage, look out for it. And then you start looking at affordability and say, oh, no, okay. After service plan, if keep longer, okay, no, so those are the considerations and the factors that I took into account from that perspective. But, hey, the power.
It's doing the things.
Yeah, no, it's doing the things. It's doing with the right kind of comfort. Because with certain cars, you either don't have the power, but you have the good looks.
Absolutely.
Of the car, the aesthetics.
Yes.
But you don't feel.
It goes nowhere.
Yeah, it goes nowhere. It goes nowhere, and you feel it the most when you're a long distance.
Yeah.
And that's when you feel the most kind of comfort. And for me, BMW has done that for me to date.
No, shout out to BMW, and there's an M-Fest coming up.
Yes.
For all the motor car or car lovers, do attend BMW. Even to the Mercedes-Benz guys, do attend the M-Fest. It's for everyone, and get to learn about a proper car that drives nice and still has power.
Yes.
But
Exactly.
but it's key what you mentioned, because people just buy cars. People, I mean, if I'm there at the dealership, I just want to sign. I don't care if I afford the car from an insurance perspective. Can I even fuel this car? We just buy it because I afford the installment. Then I start buying. Then I say, look, I can buy this car. Later on, you can't buy ice cream. You can't do nothing. No. I appreciate that. We're learning from the Economist himself. Award winning, by the way. So I think I want to take you a bit back. I want to take you a bit back and just let me know, Jorge, where were you when you first received that call? One day leader. And who was the first person you told about it?
Sure. That's way back during our varsity days.
Absolutely.
Actually, the person who encouraged me to enter One Day Leader was one of our mates at NW, Adelaide Dumi. She was the one who said, "No, hey, friend, there's something about leadership on TV. I know it's your thing. I know it's your things. Check it out." Then went to the internet, then checked
What Day Leader.
One Day Leader. What's happening? I guess it was a call to action for young people who want to make a difference in South Africa and so forth. I made that submission, and I guess the One Day Leader process started. It was interesting for me because we were studying in the Vaal, and I would have to, for the various stages of debates and screenings and all of that, to have to travel. Up and down to Johannesburg and so forth. So that experience was sort of an entry gate in terms of what a working life would look like.
Absolutely.
Because after we all finish school, we then move out to the world of work. And so already it was preparation for me. And at that point, it was actually late in my first year then. So I went through that process and only made it, I think, to the top 7, of which there was the final 6 of season 1 of the show.
Correct.
And of that period, then I guess season 1 went on. Didn't make it into the final 6.
But for me, season 1, I still felt like no ways, bro, no ways. But sorry, continue.
Look, I felt the same way. But then they thought, hey, maybe not yet. Then I tried again the second time. Second time was probably late 2012. And then went through that whole process again. And fortunately, I think with experience now,
absolutely,
I was able to get into the final 6. And so I can't even recall who are probably the first people, probably the people around me on campus. were the ones who then knew, and then I guess that's when that journey started.
Awesome, man. And I think you went on to become, I think it's Future Leaders. You went on to become a mentor or something on the show, right? And how has that experience just maybe shaped the man before our screens and even before our radio? Because I know you've been a resident DJ at Kai FM. And some recent collabs at Metro FM as well. So how has this experience shaped the man before our screens and our radio?
Sure, I think it shaped me quite a lot, particularly how I guess the show then on SABC1 was designed. One Day Leader was intended to sort of unearth emerging young people and young leaders in South Africa today, whether in civil society, in business, politics, public service, and so forth. And a lot of those leaders, a lot of the peers then, they are doing incredible stuff. Others are full-time in politics. Others are members of the legislature. Others are special advisors. Others are business people. So you already see the value that the show did.
Correct.
In that, part of that was to say, but over and above that, the very same young people need to learn how to pay it forward. And so that's where the spin-off of Future Leaders then came out, to say, post One Day Leader, the very same leaders that came out of this program, they need to learn the skills of paying it forward and unearthing other young people.
Correct.
Because ultimately, that's how we build a winning nation. And so that's what it informed. At the time, I had the great pleasure of mentoring young people from Katlehong, and another young person from Mpumalanga in Barberton. And these are vibrant, very different young people, but very driven, you know. They all have their own aspirations. And I think Kima 2000,
and they bring it.
They bring it. And you thought you were a young person who's vibrant, but they also have their own energy.
Correct.
So I think it shaped me quite a lot, both on knowing what the full meaning of leadership is, that it's never about the leader, but really about people that the leader is serving. That's first and foremost. So
powerful.
The principle of servant leadership was ingrained there in terms of my own journey. The second part was the art of knowing the art of communication.
Oh yes.
Because in order to lead effectively, one needs to learn and appreciate that communication is a very important art and science to really master if you want to rally people around the work that you're doing. Particularly in volunteer work, for example, people don't necessarily have specific financial incentives.
Yes.
But they are moved by how the leader leads them and communicates with them around a particular vision. And so those two, I think, principles for me were ingrained through that process and continue to be areas and principles that I try to continue to harness on a day-to-day basis and see how can I continue to be better? How can I be better in those areas? Yeah.
And certainly we've seen it because you rub shoulders with the number one citizen. You don't just get to be with Cyril Ramaphosa at any given day. But for me also, what just goes through my mind is, do you think going through that process, yes, appreciate the training and the experience that comes with it, do you think it makes it a bit, I wouldn't want to say easier, but it makes people more welcoming from a business perspective? Or now having seen Ndumiso from Future Leaders, from One Day Leader, does it open up doors in that sense?
It certainly does. It certainly does. You know, in Matric, there was so generally, I don't know whether it's still the case, but I used to be a very quiet, introverted person. But I enjoy public speaking
Correct.
And so forth.
Always.
So there was a competition in Matric. It was called the Sowetan and Anglo-American Young Communicators Awards.
Correct.
That's what it was called. And other people like Rorisang Tandegiso was a former winner of that particular competition, and other guys. And in the year that when I was in Matric, was able to get to the national finals. I thought I had won the national finals, but got disqualified because I went over time a bit.
Too much airtime.
Yeah, too much airtime. That's where you also learn as well that you need to be able to manage or really package your content properly. After that process, I was really shattered. I went back home to tell my mother, hey, Mama, this is what has happened. I was very emotional, crying. And then, although now the word exposure, people associated with obviously being exploited or whatever the case might be. But my mother kept on emphasizing, saying that this exposure is really going to be very important for you because it's really going to set you up for where you're going.
Absolutely.
And that was so important because one of the people I met at that platform continues to be my mentor today and has given me opportunities that ordinarily I would have never gotten at that very same platform. Had approached me after seeing that I was devastated and said, no, young man, I see something in you.
I've seen something.
Let's keep talking. And over the years, now almost 15 years, that man has played a vital role. And because of that particular platform of exposure and being able to leverage that. Today, out of that confidence of certain people that you meet along the way who believe in you and the work that you're doing, you're able to really take advantage of platforms that you're given to see how can I, and not only look at things through the monetary sense. Being an economist,
absolutely,
you one of the things I guess we appreciate about being trained in economics is that you don't purely just look at the financial. You look at the non-financial aspects and its benefits in the short and long term.
Correct.
Sometimes being young, you just want things now.
Say,
no, but I want money. No,
I want that PM.
I want to be able to pay for that PM. Exactly. But you then forget, over here, in the long run, there's a significant benefit in investing, in this particular opportunity, in this platform, and all of those things. So that's really been the benefit of that particular process in my experience.
Wow, man. Wow. Because you mentioned one thing that's very key. You mentioned exposure.
Yeah.
Exposure, because a lot of young people now see that as, no, they're exploiting me.
Yes.
Somebody else would be paying me for this. But
yes.
you don't realize that you could be missing out on opportunities that could benefit you later.
Yes.
And I mean, the Economist in you is speaking about the value of that particular maybe gig without being paid.
Yes.
The network, the connections that you get. Yeah. I'm learning. I hope the young people are learning because they usually want to make it tomorrow. Social media, they see you with a BMW, they're thinking, no man, I want that BMW tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or I want it today.
Yes.
But they don't have full appreciation of what has come before, the work that's been put in. But I want to go back and say, like, growing up, do you always want to be an economist? Just take me through that. And you haven't been an economist now. What's the highlights and what's the challenges of being an economist?
Yeah. I had two options in matric. It was either economics or law. And so for
Funny enough, I had the same.
Really?
And we both went for economics.
And we did. Perhaps it shows to how we are wired.
Absolutely.
How we are wired. So ultimately, how I landed on economics. I think coming from the homes that we come from, one of the things we want to do is to change our lived situation.
Absolutely.
We want to improve the condition of our families and, of course, of our own conditions and so forth. And like you're saying, at the time, I'm sure there was a car that was also motivating.
Absolutely. Like,
I wanted that car. How can I get that car?
Yeah.
And so I thought economics is the best way to really understand how commercial enterprise and the economy works. What are the areas where, similar to, I think, some of the conversations we've had in the past, how are people who've been able to achieve a certain level of success been able to do it? In which industries? What are the skills that they have that really make their value really premium?
Absolutely.
And so I thought that economics really is the best way to sort of be able to achieve that. But even prior to that, my natural curiosity was always leaned towards that.
Yeah.
Whenever we'd go to town with my mother, we would walk into some of these big stores, and then I always wonder. One of the questions I would ask my mom was, how does the owner of the shop afford all of the stock at once? Where does that money come from? Because, I think coming from the township and so forth, you can't imagine a lump sum of money and just buying stock.
Just buying
like
stock.
Yeah. So I wanted to understand how. And because the stock moves slowly, at which point is he able to enjoy the money and make profit? And lo and behold, later on when one went on with their studies, you then learn certain principles of accounting profits and economic profits as one thing. You learn about the value of account receivables and account payments in an income statement. You then be able to you learn the difference of gross profits and net profits, and at which point do you declare dividends, and as a business person, when can you enjoy the fruit of your labor?
Yes.
So all of those things really from the earlier age, those curiosities were really leaning towards economics to really understand that. Now, over and above that, that's at a micro enterprise point of view. How does this organization in this sector replicate itself across this whole industry in this region or in this country?
Correct.
And this is one industry. There are other industries which other business models are different. How do they replicate themselves? Then it goes on further. Where do they get the stock? How do they get the labor? Where do they get the expertise of how to knit this clothing? Or in the mining sector or in ICT? And so then the curiosity just went overboard.
And you know what? Funny enough, the Drive Network is born out of exactly that, curiosity, where I was a young man growing up and I go out from the township as well. Yes. You go see a big house, you go see a big business, you go see a nice car.
Yeah.
And you're curious, like, how does this guy do it?
Sure.
And we are sitting here to say, open it up for other guys. Say, this is how I've done it. And we're learning that curiosity does not have to be used just to inspire jealousy.
That's true.
But you can do something out of it. But you also mentioned something very key. You mentioned where we grow up, right? And that's my next question, actually, that how was the family set up growing up, and how has that influenced your immediate family setup?
So I grew up I was raised by a single mother with 3 boys.
Tough job, man.
Hey, tough job, boys. tough job. So, but I think she did a great job. My older brother is a lawyer. I'm an economist. The younger one is a civil engineer now.
Wow, man.
So
shout out to mom, and Women's Month. Yes. Shout out to mom. Did a proper job with the boys. Yes. Not easy. Another one for mom.
A big shout out. I like that. A big shout out to mothers and women everywhere. So that's the setup that I grew up in. grandparents, church background. My granddad was a reverend. So we grew up in a very strong church background at home. And that's really the context that influenced who I am, how I view things, my values, and my family values as well. And so seeing, I guess, how my mother was able to achieve what she's been able to achieve with raising us and the difficult task of raising children, I think that has also informed the value of the family values that I espouse. To say it's important, you might not necessarily have everything at a particular point in time, but what you leave within your family context is the values that you leave your children with or your family members with. I think there's a particular pastor, leaning again into the background that I grew up in, who once spoke about that I think I'm not going to do justice in paraphrasing it, but how they put it was the wealthiest sort of provision you can leave behind for your children is not what you leave for them, but what you leave in them. Because that is what will be able to really carry them forward.
I felt that.
I feel it too every time. Because it's very easy for us to accumulate wealth and assets and so forth. But the people that you leave behind, they don't add any value to society. It becomes a big problem. But what you leave in them is a much more important task. And another one, which is something that I take. It really hit me, and this one comes from a movie, not from a church background. And interesting from Kana King, that Wakanda,
Black Panther, yes.
The king that had passed, who's a South African actor now, he was saying to his son then, Hori, he said something to the effect of saying, I need to prepare you, or a wise king is able to prepare his children for the day he's no more. So from the time when you raise children, you raise them from the vantage point of preparing them for a time when one is no more.
Correct.
And that is, it changed my view around how to raise a family. Because it's something that even how I conduct myself and how the legacy I want to leave behind.
Absolutely.
So those are some of the things that informed my childhood.
Wow, man, and I think you've done it against all odds, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this. You know how Horisu a mother only, and you are a boy. 90% of the time, you don't make it to be this person. Another one. Khanti batho bana le gore when you are from a church background,
you
become something else. Bana baba ruti basto. What do they call them again?
PKs.
So you, my brother, have I don't know what they did, but they got everything right. 10 out of 10.
We thank the Lord. Amen.
But no, that's proper. So I know we're talking your journey, we're talking BMW, but for me, I want to put this one in because I'm talking to an economist, by the way. So what's your take? What's your feel about the GNU?
Oh boy, I think beginning of the year, I don't think. No, in fact, beginning of the year, for the most part, coalition politics was what was anticipated.
Correct.
And I think the big question mark was what shape or form would it take? Which I think now, after the electoral outcomes, it is much clearer that it has taken a more type of inclusive approach for the purposes of stability. And I think one of the key things or the main concerns has been South Africa's growth, economic growth has not been at the rate at which it needs to be in order to absorb young people from an employment point of view. And so that has been, to what extent would a coalition government, seeing what we saw at local government level, affect sort of a consistent, stable program of economic interventions that can be able to achieve broader macroeconomic policy questions that resolve the socioeconomic issues that we face. That was the big question mark. And even from investors' point of view, be it in the fixed income space and so forth, really asking whether or not South Africa, will it continue to be a market or an emerging market that can be investable? Will there be some level of friendliness when it comes to trade and investment? What is the situation when it comes to South Africa's foreign policy, which we've seen prior to the elections, a lot of that with what has been happening with Israel and Gaza, and South Africa's positioning on those particular questions, and to what extent there would be a variation. And so the GNU, I think, has offered some level of relative stability that was required. I think, of course, there continue to be inherent risks in such a government.
Correct.
Particularly when there are differences on key policy questions. When now the pressure is on to say, what are we doing? Are we ratifying this particular piece of legislation or not? To what extent will that create friction within the running of government?
Yes.
So that is still yet to be tested. The second level is, to what extent do changes or in-party political changes affect the running of government? That's another question I think will need to be tested. But one of the things that I think South Africa, as blessed as a country as we are, has continued to show is that seemingly we've always found a way to have some kind of middle ground that can sort of accommodate all of society.
Yes.
And not without its own critiques. But I think it's one of the strong elements or characters that we have as a country. And so one would hope that the government of national unity would be able to achieve on key policy questions. Unemployment continues to be a big one. Poverty, inequality continues to be big questions. And I think the question of transformation and empowerment of African children in particular becomes an important one. And ultimately, how do we then do that in a world that is highly competitive?
Absolutely.
To be able to compete with other young people around the world in a way that is able to add value. So one can really hope that GNU would be able to achieve that, because it's our reality now going forward.
Correct. And look, I promise this is the last political question. I need to be on two sides, right?
Yes.
So finally, the progressive opposition, do they call themselves that?
The Progressive Caucus.
Yes. What's your view on that?
Yes, I think it's demonstrative of a robust democracy. It's important to have is it political opponents or an opposition that is strong and effective, because that is how we are able to test the strength, both at an institutional level, legislative level, and I think at a societal level, of the quality of the democracy that we have. We say that we are a republic and a democratic one in nature. We are a constitutional democracy. And part of those elements, I think, is really embedded on the question of how do we manage. At an organization level, we would say change management, but how do we manage change management at a national level?
Correct.
And in a way that really provides hope and opportunity for all South Africans in particular, that they're able to see themselves as a part of this future of this country. And I think a progressive opposition is able to offer that on very key policy questions. Yes, of course, there are a lot of theatrics that come with politics, some of which I think we enjoy to laugh at.
Correct.
Just for entity, because South Africans enjoy that quite a lot. But I think it's important, and I think it will continue to be a key element of South Africa's democratic future going forward. If it's not robust now, I think it is likely to become more robust as time goes by, because we're a small, open economy, and everything that happens around the world affects South Africa directly.
Yeah.
Whether what's happening in the US now with the elections, the stock markets yesterday plunged because of some movements that happened in Japan, them raising interest rates, and now some arbitrage that was happening between traders, and of course it affects local market in terms of JSE. But even when it comes to inflation, when there's conflict in specific areas,
Correct.
We saw it with the Ukraine and Russia conflict, the wheat prices and so forth, that affected our agricultural sector, and food prices on average was the higher element that kept on increasing at the time. So because of those factors as well that are exogenous, we're likely to have a more robust democracy.
Correct.
And a progressive caucus can offer an alternative perspective and solutions in terms of how to deal with some of those questions. So I think it's good. And I think it's a characteristic of a very robust democracy.
And it also brings about some good comedy. So, yeah.
Indeed.
So I don't know if you noticed how he switches on when he talks about his work. You see why I had to wear a jacket?
No, it's what
he switches on, and you know what? That's great, man. It's probably for me. It's an honor to witness that.
Sure.
I'm very proud. I'm one of the very, very proud guys about you. You know that it's not a secret.
Yes.
I always tell you, look, I'm super proud. So I think, and I think for me, it's more what you would tell a younger version of yourself, knowing what you know now. What would you tell a younger version of yourself?
I think everything starts with belief. Sometimes we might not know what we know now. And oftentimes when we're younger, we're trying to figure things out. I think even to this day, as we get into the next stages of our lives, we try to figure things out. And we have this innate, there's something in our spirit that tells us that you need to do this, and this is what you believe in, certain fundamental truths about your contribution to the world. But when you look at the world, it becomes intimidating. Is that even possible? it becomes very scary. But I think what I would tell my younger self is and maybe it's a classical tale, but to believe in your dreams and in your convictions, regardless of what the odds look like. Because over time, there's a funny thing about life. Life, in order for it to test whether or not you believe what you believe, it has to test that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we interpret that test as, this is why I must not do this.
That you switch
I was
off.
just embarrassed now. So this is why I must not do it, But often it's a test. If you really believe and are convicted by that, and that test happens, and you're able to push through, that's when I think then God takes you to the next level, to say, well done, let's go to the next stage. So I'll tell my younger self to believe in your dreams and your convictions. What you need to know, you'll know with the passing of time.
Correct. And I think for me, it reminds me to say, like, if you like winning, and if you think winning is good, wait until you win, you start losing. Yeah. When you start losing, the winning becomes another level when you start winning again.
Yes,
that's
true.
So
that's true. That's true. That's so true.
It becomes something else when you start winning again. But yeah, I think for me, I'm very happy we had this session. It's a very short one. We could go the whole day, but let's give them this for now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will be back with more. But I think for me, it's where do they find you? Where do they find you if they're looking for you? I'm sure there's somebody watching and saying, oh my God, I need to get this man.
No, they really can find me anywhere. If they're part of the CR7 fan club, that's where you can find me. The GOAT. But generally you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or any of the social medias, Ndumiso Kubheka. On Twitter, I think it's Twitter and Instagram, Ndumiso Kubheka_. And then Facebook and Ndumiso Kubheka. That's where they can find me.
My man. The CR7 Club.
Yeah.
It's your boy, Big Bucks. Peace. We out.